About 20 people sent me a video this week from some guru who sells courses on manipulation and influence for thousands of dollars. The ironic thing is, he's now made a video explaining that language is a parasite controlling your mind, which is chef's kiss, really. A guy who's using classic NLP and hypnosis tricks to bypass the audience's critical thinking, and whose entire business model is using language to manipulate people into buying his expensive courses, is warning you that language is the problem. It's like a heroin dealer giving a lecture on the dangers of sugar. Anyway, I won't name him because fuck giving him free publicity, but let me explain why his core argument is bullshit. His thesis goes like this. Language meets all the criteria of biological parasitism. Needs a host, consumes resources, alters behavior, replicates through the host. Therefore, language is a parasite and we need to experience reality beyond words to be free. But wait, he's using language right now to convince you that language is a parasite. If language controls your perception and manipulates your consciousness, why should we believe his linguistic argument that language is a parasite? By his own logic, that statement is itself a parasitic manipulation of your mind. This is a classic self-defeating argument. If the tool is corrupt, you can't use the tool to prove the tool is corrupt. He's standing on the branch he's trying to saw off. But anyway, let's also check that against actual biological definitions. A parasite lives in or on another organism, derives nutrients from it, causes it harm, and benefits at the host's expense. But here's what makes something genuinely parasitic. You need to show the mechanism and whose interests are served. What's the parasitic program? How does it operate? Who benefits from the host's exploitation? Language as such has no interests. Language doesn't benefit when you're manipulated. Language doesn't gain anything when control systems suppress your autonomy. But specific constructs transmitted through language absolutely serve someone's interests. They maintain hierarchies, enforce compliance, install psychological control mechanisms. The parasite isn't the infrastructure. The parasite is the malicious code running on that infrastructure. Here's why calling language itself parasitic is stupid. Language is like Python or C++ or any programming language. You can use Python to write useful software that solves problems, or you can also use Python to write ransomware that destroys systems. Same language, different code. The programming language isn't the parasite. The malicious code written in that language is the parasite. Calling Python parasitic because someone wrote a virus in it would be absurd. Python is a tool. What matters is what you build with it. Guess what? You can also write antivirus software in Python. You can use the same tool to detect and destroy malware that was created using that same tool. We could also say that math is a parasite because it helps people calculate how much money they can suck out of your pocket. In case that example didn't suffice, a hammer. You can use a hammer to build a shelf in your house. You can also use a hammer to bash someone's skull in. But we don't call hammers murderers and propose that humanity needs to transcend the use of tools. The difference is whose hands hold the hammer and what they choose to do with it. Or take the internet. Older generations love saying the internet is evil because it's got porn and drug marketplaces. But hold on, the internet also has scientific databases, entire libraries of books, skill tutorials for literally any craft you want to learn, and platforms for humans to communicate across the planet. The difference isn't the internet. The difference is wetware between the chair and the computer. Human language works exactly the same way. The capacity to use symbols to represent concepts, that's the tool. What gets transmitted through that tool determines whether it helps you or controls you. So I genuinely don't understand how someone can present this argument with such a serious face when it doesn't survive even surface level critique. When someone tells a child, that stove is hot, don't touch it or you'll burn yourself, that's useful code. Information transfer to prevent harm. When someone tells a child, you should be ashamed of yourself, that's malicious code. That installs an internal supervisor who will spend decades punishing that person on behalf of the system. Both use language. One serves the person's autonomy and safety. The other serves systemic control through shame installation. The difference is in what's being transmitted and whose interests it serves. And here's your empirical proof that language itself isn't the problem. If language as such were parasitic, every culture with language would show identical infection patterns. They don't. Anthropologists have documented societies with no hierarchy and no linguistic equivalent for shame, as we understand it. They have words for that action caused harm to someone, which is just information about consequences. What they don't have is you are fundamentally defective and must atone for existing. If the problem were categorization itself, shame would be universal, but it's not. Which proves something very specific. The parasite is malicious code written in language, not language itself. Instead of pointing at actual parasitic constructs, he declares the entire linguistic system parasitic. His solution? Stop using words and experience reality directly. Dude, if your argument requires shutting off your brain, maybe the problem isn't language. Maybe the problem is the quality of your thinking. People can experience reality without words, but we have no way to study it because there are no humans without language and with a normally functioning psyche. Without language, you don't become free. You become cognitively disabled. This is like saying your computer has a virus, so you should throw the computer out the window. Brilliant! Except the virus doesn't give a shit. And you're standing there without a computer feeling like an enlightened idiot. He's proposing you disable your analytical tools so you stop noticing when you're being manipulated, which is exactly what a manipulator would say.
Don't think, just feel, trust me.
Yeah, because without language you can't name what he's doing. You can't say, this is shame programming or this is hierarchy installation. You just feel some vague discomfort and buy another course to figure out what's happening. And wait, here's his solution. Go beyond language. How are you explaining this to us if language is a parasite? Through interpretive dance? Mime? If language is parasitic, why do all your courses cost thousands of dollars for words? Make a video without language, dude. Let's see how many people buy that. And by the way, this isn't even an original idea. He's repackaging William Burroughs' language is a virus concept mixed with some Derrida post-structuralism about language constructing reality rather than reflecting it. The mechanism here is classic. Take real scientific observations like the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis, which shows language influences cognition, and blow them up into an apocalyptic threat so you feel urgency. Then sell you the solution. Oh, and he's selling a book about this. A book written with words, I guess, that supposedly bypasses language and disrupts the naming reflex. Dude, you wrote a book with sentences on paper that people read with their eyes using language processing. This is like selling a course called How to Stop Buying Courses. Real parasitic systems fear one thing above all: precise naming. When you can say this is shame, this is hierarchical submission, this is scarcity programming, the program loses power, because language can also carry an antivirus, not just parasitic programs. Calling language parasitic is like blaming your microscope for showing you bacteria. Language isn't the parasite. The parasite is code that hides inside language, masking itself as wisdom and norms. And the best way to destroy it is naming it precisely and taking apart its mechanism. You know what manipulators always want? For you to stop thinking logically, to abandon critical analysis, to trust your emotions instead of your reason. Don't overthink it, just let go, stop being so analytical. They want you to disable the very tools that would expose what they're doing. And here's a guy whose entire career is teaching manipulation techniques, now telling you that language, your primary analytical tool, is the enemy. Figure it out.